I am incredibly worried about Splatoon 3. I'm not worried that the game will be bad or that there's going to be delays. I'm worried that Nintendo's marketing strategy may have destroyed Splatoon 3's potential before it's even arrived. Now, I mentioned this briefly in the Splatoon 3 Needs You video, but that video was pretty short, so today I'm going to pop my little marketing cap on and go into a bit more detail about what I meant. I, like many of you, am incredibly excited about Splatoon 3, but I'm not afraid to say that from a marketing point of view, the way Splatoon 3 has been handled is to me very subpar, and that concerns me. The reason it concerns me is because how a game is advertised and marketed prior to its release can have a huge impact on both how the game is received by a wider audience, the reputation that it picks up, and how much it sells and how much the franchise can grow. And if you think I'm being over dramatic or I'm over exaggerating, let's just take a look at one of Nintendo's other marketing errors with the Splatoon franchise, eh? Let me take you back like 7 years to something that many of us know and many of us hate. It's the "You're a Kid Now, You're Squid Now" trailer from Splatoon 1. And you know what? Yeah, people remember that line, but for all the wrong reasons. Did it get more people playing the game? No. Did it potentially cost Nintendo new Splatoon players? Abso-freaking-lutely. I imagine at the time, Nintendo were like, oh yeah, Squid, kid, yay, rhymes, blah blah blah. That one line is from an advert that is 7 years old, and yet the reputation that Splatoon is a game that's just for kids has stuck with it to this day, largely in part because of that commercial. When I say how you advertise a game is important, it's because of things like that. Now, when I say Nintendo have advertised Splatoon 3 poorly, I'm actually not generally talking about the lack of new information. What I'm talking about is a lack of general advertising. The Nintendo Twitter accounts are all incredibly active, far more so than the official Splatoon ones, and they'd all be a great opportunity to get the game out there to people who are probably Nintendo fans but not necessarily Splatoon fans. But Splatoon 3 has scarcely made an appearance on any of these accounts in comparison to a lot of other Nintendo IPs. Now obviously yes, games like Kirby and the Forgotten Land or Nintendo Switch Sports are both coming out prior to Splatoon 3, but Splatoon 3 is also the one that's been known about the longest. Without frequent enough advertising, people will forget about it. They didn't need to be pumping out loads of new content for us, but I really think that the game could have benefited massively from just being put out there in the public eye on a more frequent basis. And while I was scripting this video, the perfect thing just happened to demonstrate exactly what I'm talking about. So I left a comment on ProChara's video about 4 or 5 weeks ago talking about the advertising for Splatoon 3, or rather a lack thereof. And literally, no word of a lie, just as I was scripting this video, someone just responded to that comment saying, I didn't even know there was a Splatoon 3 coming out until last week. That is a huge concern, and that is exactly what I'm talking about, because this person won't be the only one. It's one thing to be marketing your game in a way where people are aware of it, but they just haven't been sold on buying it. It's a whole nother ballpark when you're marketing your game so badly that people are not even aware it exists. Splatoon 2 was and is a relatively successful game, but Splatoon 3 cannot rely on that. I'm sure most of you will know or have at least heard of Mean Girls, right? Now I bet half of you didn't know that there was a Mean Girls 2, and if you didn't know, that's because the film flopped massively in comparison to the first one. And the reason it flopped was because they rested on the Mean Girls name to bring people in. For anyone that's not a diehard Mean Girls fan, that was not a good enough marketing strategy for the film to get anywhere near the success of the first. Splatoon 3 has the potential to be the biggest game in the Splatoon franchise so far, but not if Nintendo continue to attend the Mean Girls 2 school of marketing. So I'm recording this on April 5th, and the Splatoon North America account have just tweeted the basics of Splatoon, and you might be thinking this is great, and it is to a certain extent, but I still have some issues with it. At this point in time, I'd say probably 90 to 95% of their following most likely already play Splatoon or have already played Splatoon and therefore already know this. With that tweet they posted, they had the right idea, but they didn't put it, for me, in the correct place. A company who I think do what Nintendo should have done very well are Netflix. Netflix have individual accounts for lots of their most popular shows. Now, I don't follow the Bridgerton account because I don't watch Bridgerton. I know, shock horror, it's so popular, but I don't watch it, and because I don't watch Bridgerton, I don't follow the Bridgerton account. However, I do follow follow the main Netflix account, and therefore I know a bit about Bridgerton because it's advertised on the main Netflix account where Netflix's biggest audience are. And this is how most of these things generally tend to work. People will follow the big company, whether that's Netflix or Nintendo, if they're generally a fan of the things they do, but they will only really follow like a specific page like Bridgerton or Splatoon in this case if they are already a fan of it, or they already watch it, or they already play it. So the chances are, by posting something like that to the Splatoon account, the tweet was aimed at newbies, but the likelihood is very few newbies actually saw that tweet because it wasn't posted in the correct place for them to find it. I think that this particular tweet could have had so much more impact if it was posted onto Nintendo America as opposed to Splatoon North America. At the time of recording this, Splatoon North America has 42.1 thousand followers, which is, a pretty big amount, right? But the Nintendo America account has 12 million. And this is what I'm getting at. We've not had a lot of advertising for the game anyway, and when they do advertise it, they're not advertising it to their biggest audiences. I hope that this does mean we might be getting some new news soon, but that still doesn't change the fact that even if we do get some new news now, that I am massively disappointed with how Nintendo have marketed this game over the past year. Through most of the time that we've known about Splatoon 3, the main source of advertising for the game has come from Splatoon content creators, Splatoon artists, and Splatoon Twitter and the Splatoon community online. The majority of the advertising at this stage in the game's life, before it's even come out, should never been down to Splatoon content creators like myself, or artists, or the Splatoon community online. That should never have happened. We should not have been left having to carry the hype for this game. Nintendo should have been doing that through the advertising over the past year, and quite frankly, I don't think they did a good enough job of it. Due to the fact that they've been so poor on the advertising over the past year, Nintendo have left themselves in a situation where the next proper bit of advertising or information for Splatoon 3 has to be amazing in order to save this game. I assume we're only a few months away from Splatoon 3's launch, but Nintendo have to pull out all the stops over the next few months, because from what I can gather, there's little to no hype surrounding this game outside of the Splatoon community. And I have no doubt that Splatoon 3 will be a fun game, but I fear it's going to pay the price for the way that Nintendo have neglected to properly advertise it over the past year. And the worst thing is, out of the 3 Splatoon games, Splatoon 3 is the one that I really think needed to have strong marketing, because it is on the same console as Splatoon 2. Nintendo can probably bank on hardcore Splatoon fans buying the game regardless, but for those who have perhaps played Splatoon 2 or own Splatoon 2 but are not super fans, Nintendo are going to have a way harder time convincing them to buy the game. The thing is, I'm less annoyed that we aren't getting new information. Of course, naturally, I do want new info, we all do, but what annoys me more is that I see so much potential in the Splatoon franchise to be able to grow and expand its community, but I don't think that's going to happen with the way that Nintendo have marketed Splatoon 3. In the back of my head somewhere, I'm thinking, what if Nintendo are just ultra big braining us right now, and they have a plan that is going to be great and it's going to knock our socks off? Nintendo had a whole year to win people over and sell them on Splatoon 3, and that was a great opportunity, but it was royally wasted. Hype could have been through the roof by this stage, but instead you've got irritated Splatoon fans and other Nintendo fans who've forgotten Splatoon 3 even exists. I hope I'm wrong. I hope that Splatoon 3 does great and the game reaches new people and our community grows, but unless Nintendo do something big and they do it soon, I really can't see it happening.